All right, so let me get to my questions. First up, will Sammy be the Saudi D-Bry? Now, what the hell does all that mean? Let me explain. As we all know, after we began the road to the Royal Rumble last Saturday, that really began with Sami Zayn predictably winning the Fatal 4-Way to become the number one contender to Drew McIntyre's title, getting the match on Saturday in Saudi Arabia. Significance to that is, obviously he's not from Saudi Arabia, but there's this sort of hometown feel that is attached to Sammy when he goes to Saudi Arabia. Remember the first show when he wasn't allowed on the card because there was like threats to his life? Those were interesting times, weren't they? Oh, how things have changed. With that said, I think with these Saudi premium live events, the major ones, there's always been a peg that he was going to do something pretty big on one of these shows. I think before we knew that we were getting our Saudi Arabian WrestleMania, a lot of people really pegged it that Sammy's going to win the Rumble in Saudi Arabia, and that's going to be the big start of his big push, which will culminate in him winning the title at WrestleMania, which if you follow any Sami Zayn promo for about the last year, that's all he's really talked about. Well, as it stands out, it doesn't look like he's actually in the Rumble match. He's in a title match for what is like the main title, and given everything we've had with CM Punk in the last couple of weeks, I don't think he's necessarily defending on the show. Could be wrong. There could be something added in the next couple of days, but I doubt it. So the big men's singles match, title match, will be Sammy challenging against Drew McIntyre, an opponent he's like never beaten, and the commentary has been quick to point that out. Now, if I had to guess, the big coronation for Sammy, it's coming next year at Saudi Arabia. That's a hell of a gamble, though, for a guy who's already 41, that we're going to wait till next year to have his big moment. There are so many moving parts and things that change and all that stuff. Jeez. Mute button, where are you? Can't find you. Swig of cola for the working man there. Like I said, there's no guarantee that Sammy will even be in the plans 2 months from now. You never know how these things can change. So that's a heck of a long-term gamble. But I hope it pays off for them. I like Sammy as a performer and want good things for him. Although I will say, it's okay if Sammy never gets his moment. That can be part of his character. Attaining that top spot, I know it's been given to maybe too many people in the opinion of some, but it's okay if it's not achieved by everyone. It makes it special. So I think nobody reasonably thinks, feel free to disagree, let me know in the chat, that Drew is going to get the victory on Saturday. I think it's clear that he's going to get the victory. Maybe it'll be a big heat moment, maybe it's not. But I don't think there's any expectation, some may have, that he will enter the Royal Rumble, and thus he's not going to win the Royal Rumble. Now, in any other Rumble situation, think 2014, 2015, the crowd might hijack the entire show if Sammy didn't win either match. I don't think that's going to be the case here. While I think the Saudi crowd really is into Sammy, they're into a lot of the things they're seeing. They seem to be pretty fervent about the product in general. We don't know yet how closely everything is followed and all the insider stuff and all that. So I don't know if the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going to go like the night after WrestleMania 29 and hijack the stadium. In fact, I would almost guarantee you that's not going to happen. So I don't think it's going to be the case, but there is a slight risk there. There's a slight risk on souring the whole evening if there is a segment of the crowd there that is dead set on Sammy winning. Now, unlike the Daniel Bryan years that I'm kind of referencing here with 2014 and 2015, I think everyone in the arenas each night in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh really thought that Daniel Bryan was supposed to win the Royal Rumble matches on those respective evenings. He wasn't even in the one in 2014. Poor Rey Mysterio had to like get booed, leave the company, and like get rehabbed because of that decision. And then he's in the Rumble, as we all know, in 2015. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. He had his dreams shattered midway through the match, so nobody would remember him at the end of the match. Ask Rock and Roman Reigns how that turned out. I don't think Sammy's going to take over the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia this Saturday, but it is an interesting little nugget to watch and to follow for this next year. Where exactly does his career go? Have they missed his moment? Have they waited just long enough? Or is it okay if he never has it? Let me take a swig so I don't, like I did on the last point, and then I'll get to the next one. There we are. All right, my next burning question. Are we really going to have 30 women in the Royal Rumble match in PJs? And I had to give some context here. There was a time when 30 women in a single match would probably mean that they were wearing lingerie. So I guess shout out to the progressive Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for putting all these women in PJs. Like actual PJs. Now, some really pull it off. We saw Rhea Ripley a couple of years ago wearing an outfit that looked almost identical to what she wears to the ring all the time. So they have made some progress since Lacey Evans was out there in that super, super baggy thing, or Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss wrestling in these like giant blankets, basically, because God forbid any skin show in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Remember when they ran the video package that had like that one shot of Sasha for like a second and they had to apologize? Somehow those were simpler times than we're in now. It's crazy. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of over the conversation about WWE doing their events in Saudi Arabia. Like, I don't think it's a great thing, but boy, Saudi Arabia sure did their homework by doing what a lot of media does, and have pro wrestling kind of test the waters out first and then bring everyone else in. Like, now there's so much sports and entertainment that is so directly tied up with Saudi Arabia. It's no longer that the shady wrestling company is going down there to take a big check and provide propaganda. Now it's like our entire country is doing that. So I guess we could just, join in all the fun. Or I guess we should say it's not really fair to just single out WWE for their sports washing. And if you want to take it a step further, in this country, who the hell are we to lecture others about the ethical behavior of their government? With all of that said, remember when the conversation was not necessarily about human rights or any of that when it came to the performance of the sports washing in Saudi Arabia. What it came down to, the initial time when they initially went over there, was about the women not being able to be on the card at all. Because if you recall, women were not allowed on these cards at all on the first couple of shows. In fact, we had to get Renee Young over there doing commentary, dressed in the old black with her hands covered. She had the unique travel schedule, all of that. Well, we found a solution to not having women on the card. We put all the women in these PJs. Now, it's funny enough when the women are only involved in 2 matches in the show, which in general, there's a big enough roster. I think the women can have more to do on these shows, and I think it would help freshen up the card. But in this case, you have the entire roster in one match. How ridiculous are some of these outfits going to get? And it's one thing. If these women have a wardrobe malfunction stateside, there's going to be some camera trickery. There was a time when I know they used to get it was a certain fine that they would get for any wardrobe malfunction. I don't believe that's the case anymore, but I could be wrong. But it's a whole different scenario, and you're in Saudi Arabia and not trying to show skin. And by skin, I mean like your wrist. And so who knows the elaborate outfits they're going to be involved in? Who knows the weird wrestling that's going to happen because of this? And it's a Royal Rumble too. So those matches are weird and awkward sometimes anyway. I am locked in to the 30 women in PJ's Royal Rumble. Couple more to go. Next question. Will the new blood make a difference? No, not that new blood. Not the one from WCW. I mean the new blood that we have now in WWE. WWE, let's face it, it feels really old right now. Like it's an age roster that has basically all wrestled each other for the last 3 years. They need something new. Not necessarily something younger, although that would be helpful, but just something newer and fresher at the top. And there's a few spots where it feels like they're trying. I'm looking at you specifically, Obafemi and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker seems to be the main character of this Rumble, and that person usually wins the match. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to make an official prediction because that would be the prediction, and it doesn't feel like that well thought out of a prediction. Someone who I don't think is going to win, but I think needs to have a great showing, is Obafemi, because they are hyping him up as this being the big debut of Obafemi as a main roster member. He's been on the main roster, obviously, and had that match with Cody, but this is the debut of him being a main roster member. I'm not saying Braun or Obafemi or even Jacob Fatu have to win. What I'm saying is these guys have to have a great showing, and what they do has to mean something. It can't just be like a Maven moment where you do something shocking, you eliminate someone, and it's a big deal, and then it goes away. Enough with the moments. WWE is all about the moments. Can we get a moment that at least lasts 3 to 4 to 5 months? So I need them to do something of consequence, not just be around in the Royal Rumble. They like to do this with young guys, where they'll have someone who's on the come up who you might peg as a future champion, and they'll have them last 35, 40, even go the whole way in the Rumble. But they don't do anything in the Rumble. They're just there. I don't want that. We need some moments, especially with this new crop. If it's guys like Jacob, guys like Oba, guys like Braun Breaker. Those are power guys who throw people around. That's what a Royal Rumble is. It's a bunch of power guys throwing people around. There's no reason why there can't be a showcase here. Now, I think the whole Vision storyline with the entire Vision being in the match does kind of complicate things from just a pure prediction standpoint, but it also will add probably some intrigue to the match. Regardless, I need us to be talking about one of these under 40 wrestlers after the Royal Rumble. We talk a lot about the same 5 to 6 guys. It is time for some daylight. This year, 2026, needs to be a transition year for WWE. And this Saturday could be the first step. Okay. Second to last one. Penultimate, some would say. Will Roman gain traction? I feel like last Friday, Roman was the first person actually announced for the Rumble. And the Rumble's this Saturday. So again, maybe Roman called them up and reminded them that like they had a pay-per-view to promote. Maybe that's how this whole thing got rolling. But beyond that, like it's that announcement of Roman Reigns was probably like the most significant thing that happened on TV for him in the last like 18 months. He has no momentum. He gains no traction. And he only works like 6 matches a year. So whatever he does in the Royal Rumble has to be meaningful. Because like whatever he does is probably going to take up his time for the rest of the year. So they've got to get it right. And I'll be honest, I have no idea what pathway they're going to go on with him. But he needs to gain some momentum. He needs to have something in his character other than the bloodline and the fall of that title and that whole storyline wrap up. That was great. Changed WWE. Cornerstone storyline in a boom period. So I would have a hard time letting go of that storyline. But given the frequency that Roman works, he's not really coming across anymore as a rarely seen special attraction. Instead, he's kind of starting to reek of like a relic that we see every now and then. A piece of the past to help us remember a different time. Sort of a legend that we're deferential towards. And someday Roman Reigns does deserve that status. But I think that he has so much more that he can offer right now, and they have so much more creatively that they can do with him, that honestly, if he's going to have another nothing year like he did in 2025, I'm not so sure what the hell we need Roman around for anymore. And lastly, will we say goodbye to AJ Styles? This is the main storyline, I think, in all of WWE right now. Last week, when the retirement stipulation was announced, I could have gone either way, but I figured that AJ Styles is getting out of the Royal Rumble with the victory. That was my initial gut reaction when that was announced on Raw. But everything that's happened in the last week or so has kind of led me to believe that this will be the end for him. Let's actually recap this year for AJ Styles. And we're 27 days into the year. He nearly beat Gunther on Raw, got the visual win on him, had a really good TV match with Shinsuke Nakamura, and a not so entertaining but big match against CM Punk last night on Raw. And now, Saturday, he's got his career on the line against Gunther. They sandwiched like 6 months of a retirement storyline into 27 days. AJ's made no bones about it. He's going to retire in 2026. Is WWE his final destination in his wrestling career? I'm going to say no. I think he's going to wrestle somewhere else before the year is over. And all the talk from later last year that his contract went through February, it would make sense that they'd be winding him down right here. But I'll be honest, I have no idea what they're going to do. Again, they're building it pretty strong and implying that he would retire. Not since really, I would say, Flair in 08 have they really gone so ham on forecasting the results of a retirement match. That's how you knew in 2013 Triple H was not going to retire against Brock Lesnar. There was no fanfare to that being like a retirement thing for him. They didn't like bring out Steph and the kids, and I don't know who else they did bring out Shawn. He was a part of that match. But like, if Triple H could have retired in a different way than he did with the health issues coming out of the pandemic and all that, 100%, he's got the full Ric Flair, Sting, John Cena retirement treatment. That's how you knew in 2013 he wasn't retiring. 2008, they almost flat out said it. Like they put Flair in the Hall of Fame the night before. You had all his family, all the people from his past all around. The implication was that it was gonna be Flair's last match, which it really wasn't. But that's another story for another day. It could all be a work. Everything they're doing, they could be working us, or this could be just a storyline for Unreal, because that's another canon we always have to contend with now when we're analyzing this stuff. Either way, I think this kind of works. It's a good outcome from them either way. They can get some very legitimate heat on Gunther now, more so than they did on the past. Now, I was an advocate for what they did at Saturday Night's Main Event. I've been less of an advocate for Gunther just being the troll and them kind of feels like not losing the momentum they had, but not completely seizing on it. Even though AJ Styles is a much lesser star and not quite nowhere near the icon that John Cena was, I think the heelish thing of beating him in the retirement match, especially if it's done through nefarious means, that's a way to really sustain some heat on Gunther. So if they go that route, that's the way to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't hate the idea of AJ finishing his career outside of WWE. If he goes to New Japan, if he goes to AEW, if he makes appearances in TNA and ROH. I know many of those are owned by other companies, but any of those would be great. Does he have a little GCW appearance? I would love to see all that, and I think that would be a perfect cap on his career. And I'm 10 years in WWE. He's definitely served his time in that company.